I was thinking that it would die down. I mean, people are saying, woke is over and, cancel culture is a thing of the past, but it's clearly not, isn't it? And if anything, it's ramping up.
And there is no willingness to show any compassion, to be conciliatory, to understand where you actually end up when you other the enemy and call them fascists, call them Nazis, call them satanic. This is the end result. And so I'm afraid the fissure has become so strong, the chasm is so wide, and the level of hatred, most of which goes obviously only in one direction, towards the right, is such that they're incapable of actually seeing things in the common sense way we would be doing.
I remember actually the Thatcher thing, and it was also mining towns in the north. They had these kind of, like, as you say, processions with corpses and things on it, and you sort of felt, this is making you look so small.
I think the Home Office is a fifth column working against the British national interest, and they need to be removed entirely from all aspects of migrants.
But that is, we are going to understand what sectarianism, what a balkanized society really does look like. And of course, it comes with massive violence as well.
Hello and welcome to Newspeak, our weekly look at the news agenda. I'm very pleased to be joined, well, I say as ever, but actually on select occasions now, by Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, Senior Fellow and Royal Historian, Amy Gallagher, Stand Up to Woke, and Dr. Philip Kiszely, Senior Fellow, and of course, our national organizer. Now, before we look at all the various issues of this week, and some of our own, I have to add, we will go through some of the information about locals, right, Philip?
Yeah, some of our own indeed, and we'll come to that in a minute. But we've got a lot of things happening with locals at the moment, as you can see scrolling across the screen below me just now. So lots and lots of stuff happening there. Please do get in touch, get involved. It's locals at newcultureforum.org.uk, and there are things like, for example, happening in London, we've got Turning Point UK speaking at one of our events. We've got Politics and Christianity in Dorset. We've got Harrison Pitt in Cambridge, and we've got Eric Kaufman as well, a big friend of the channel. Eric will be speaking in London. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on there. Like I say, do get in touch. We'd be really delighted to hear from you.
Yeah, I have to say that if you go to Cambridge, there are some very elegant there's been some very elegant fly posting of Harrison.
There,
sitting, in some kind of wingback chair and everything. It's looking very, very good.
Looking very stately.
Very, very good.
Cross between, a statesman and Rowley Burke in QC there.
But while we're on locals, Philip, if you can start us off here, because we were going to talk generally about the whole cancellation culture. We've had it ourselves, haven't we?
It's been a bit of a tough week for us, really. It started last Friday. We had an email from the venue that we were holding our Northern Conference at, which is called the Fountain House in Manchester. And they asked to see a list of our speakers at the conference. Now, that's always bad news. If you know anything about this, that's always bad news. Someone's complained to them. So we sent them a list of speakers, and it was, people like Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, Peter Whittle, those kind of people. Raja Miah, Naraya Khan, Gawain Towler, friends of the channel, very energetic, high octane speakers, but I suppose as far as these people are concerned, fairly controversial. They got back to us saying that they couldn't hold our conference due to circumstances beyond their control. Nothing else. It was just, that's it. Goodbye on your bike. We are not going to have anything to do with you. So we got in touch. We wrote to them and they just said it's the central office, it's the head office of the parent company, but we can offer you some Greene King beer vouchers by way of recompense. So we didn't take them because who drinks Greene King beer? Yeah. So it's really serious, this, because I think with the Overton window moving to the right, I hate that expression, but the Overton window moving to the right, many of us feel as though we're really winning this war, and we feel as though we're winning the cancellation war. We're really not. They're just doubling down. They're cancelling harder, and particularly in places like Manchester, which are extremely woke. Okay. It's very difficult to get any venue there whatsoever. And this is,
why particularly?
Well, I'll come to that in a second, but this is a venue that the Free Speech Union have held events there. There's another free speech organisation which we're involved with. They've held events there. This was recommended to us, but they just shut us down absolutely and totally. I think there are lots of reasons why, but mainly because over the last 30 or 40 years, Manchester city centre is just full of luxury flats, and the woke, anywheres, creative class type people who come into university, who come in for the nighttime economy, have stayed there, bought houses and flats there, and colonised the place. And they are very much all of a type. They are all woke. They've all got blue hair, you know. If you go to any pub in Manchester, I said this on Nick Buckley's podcast yesterday, if you go to any pub in city centre Manchester, chances are you're going to have a trans bar person, a trans barman dressed as a woman. That's because, you know, if they go for a job there, these people, they're not going to say no, are they? You're transphobic if you're not going to give these people a job. So there's something there about the makeup of the city that has certainly changed massively since I lived there, because it used to be poor Mancunians who lived near the centre, not anymore. We have to think very carefully about how we take this fight forward. And what this fight looks like, I'm not really quite sure. I'm not really quite sure where we go from here in this cancellation war, because things are moving so fast. But it isn't going away, as we've seen, with Charlie Kirk. It's not just about cancellation. It's not even just about putting people in prison now for hurty words and fruity tweets. It's actually legitimizing murder. You know, these people are so wicked. These people are so awful. I'm actually doing humanity a favour by taking them away. It's this kind of mindset that the psychotic left has at the moment. Interestingly enough, Morrissey, who many of his views align with ours, has just cancelled a couple of shows. This is in America because he's had death threats. So this stuff is really serious. It's serious on a personal level. It's serious on a big celebrity level, but it's serious on a day-to-day events level as well. So we have to think about how we tackle this stuff.
Also, it's worth pointing out on Saturday, which is when this conference would have been, that actually Advance UK, Ben Habib's party, which is supported by Tommy Robinson, I believe, that has also been pulled off. On the same pretext, I think, Amy.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this, on your Whittle interview show, you've had people who have been cancelled for expressing views about supporting the Reform Party. And we're kind of, in a way, we're winning the argument in that Reform are topping the polls and they look likely to be the next government. We're in a very strange situation where we could have people who agree with the incoming government or the next government being cancelled still. And you would have think, well, hang on, isn't there a tipping point when they're, you know, if this is the majority view, then people aren't going to be cancelled, but it seems as though they still are. So, it's strange. I was thinking that it would die down. I mean, people are saying, you know, woke is over and, cancel culture is a thing of the past, but it's clearly not, isn't it? And if anything, it's ramping up, and there are people on the right sort of calling for people on the left to be cancelled, and it's not dying down. It seems to be becoming more polarised and more aggressive, actually, which is, it is.
Do you think, sorry, Rafe, you go ahead.
And just to say, there's another reason that we were cancelled from the Fountain House, and that's because the ultimate parent company, as you said, is Greene King. Greene King is one of the most woke companies in the country. That's because it's one of the few organisations, along with Lloyd's of London, that can legitimately trace its wealth back to slavery. And so post George Floyd, they had huge discussions within them, and they made a conscious decision to go woke, embrace DI policies, actively have all of this anti-racism, training and all the rest of it. So they are essentially one of the wokest companies in the country. So I'm surprised that they actually had the Free Speech Union there as well and others. So it's certainly Manchester. But again, this is about woke corporations that are deliberately harming their own brand in order to advance some bizarre ideology.
But sorry, the interesting thing on that as well is, this is all about anti-racism, isn't it? Two of our key speakers there have brown skin. Raja and Naraya are talking very definitely about their own experiences, their own communities, and Naraya in particular about some awful abuse that she's suffered and experienced over years, and now they are piling abuse on abuse. It's extraordinary, but that's the way that identity politics works. It backs itself into a hole and it turns in on itself.
Would you have thought that Charlie Kirk and what happened to Charlie Kirk would make any difference to these people? Would you think it would make them reconsider? No, it wouldn't, would it? Because basically, as we've said on this program many times, we're talking about living in a state of post-revolution. This is part of it. Hello, please excuse this brief interruption, but I'd be really grateful if you could please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel. Our mission is vitally important, and we must grow this channel to ensure that our content reaches the biggest possible audience. The best way to do this is for you to subscribe. It's totally free. And in addition to subscribing, if you're able to donate or join our membership scheme, please click on the link in the description or visit our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. We've got great plans ahead, but we can't do it without your support. From only £4 per month, you'll receive a range of perks and benefits, including exclusive content. Thank you.
Yes, well, when you've seen the level of hatred towards Charlie Kirk that followed his death, and this idea that still prevails that his murderer was also a member of the right. I mean, this is what got Jimmy Kimmel into trouble on American television by claiming that, in fact, the alleged murderer was one of their own, one of the Republican Party's own, where, of course, we know for a fact that that wasn't the case at all. And there is no willingness to show any compassion, to be conciliatory, to understand where you actually end up when you other the enemy and call them fascists, call them Nazis, call them satanic. This is the end result. And so I'm afraid the fissure has become so strong, the chasm is so wide, and the level of hatred, most of which goes obviously only in one direction towards the right, is such that they're incapable of actually seeing things in the common sense way we would be doing.
Yes, it is quite extraordinary with the lack of inhibition these people have had in talking actually about the murder.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody that I publicly would celebrate their death, even like a serial killer, who've done abhorrent things. I would still feel it was disrespectful to myself to kind of celebrate somebody's death. It's just something about it that feels wrong. I don't care who they are. Maybe, privately, that maybe there are some figures who might sort of say good riddance, but, may or may not, I don't know. But I just think doing it publicly and so soon, it's very strange to get into the minds of people that do that. And it's shocking. And I think there is... Yeah, I mean, it just shows how polarized people are on this subject, how they really do see the person as not human.
Well, I think that point about the public and the private sphere and the barrier between them being collapsed, which the left did so they could attack people in the private sphere.
They said the private is political.
I think that's very important. The personal is political. And they embody their own ideas. The idea of identity politics is that you embody your own ideas, and therefore it's the personal is the political, and that legitimizes in their eyes. They give themselves permission then to attack because they feel as though, or they say they feel as though they're being attacked personally themselves. And of course they're not. We deal in ideas.
And a classic example of this sort of what we're talking about on the lack of humanity, of course, shows you how long this has been happening, and that was the death of Margaret Thatcher. Now, when Margaret Thatcher died, you had parties in the streets.
Yeah, they were dancing in the street.
You had her effigy being burned and hanged, or coffins of her, the witch is dead. And what I found remarkable about all of those scenes were that the people who were most vociferous in their hatred towards Thatcher, the ones who were most, full of hatred, were people who were born after she left office.
Yeah.
People who actually had no experience of the Thatcher years. And that's because, again, they've been brainwashed. This is the ideology of the left, the othering. Forget the fact that they've never experienced what this was like. And they should have thought, well, actually, if my parents aren't that furious about Thatcher, why on earth have I become so reactionary? But that's what's happened. We have essentially had a generation of our youth and others have been totally brainwashed by a far left education system, combined with the media, combined with all the institutions of communicating ideas.
Also, don't you think there's something as well that's juvenile about it? I mean, it's about, I think, how juvenile as a society we've become. Adults basically don't do that. Adults would take a different approach. I remember actually the Thatcher thing, and it was also mining towns in the north. They had these kind of, like, as you say, processions with corpses and things on it, and you sort of felt, this is making you look so small. You know, vindictive and small. This is how many years after the 1925, 30?
Yeah, I was trying to think if there's anyone on the left whose death had been celebrated. I couldn't think of one. And I was thinking there's been times when kind of evil dictators have died. I mean, I was thinking of Gaddafi, and I remember saying, people were celebrating his death, and obviously he was a dictator, but I still felt uncomfortable, when there was those scenes of him being killed. It's like, that is still a human, and I'm not totally comfortable with celebrating what's happened to him, even though he has done awful things. But it's a very strange state of mind to
it's a very good point,
celebrate
actually.
people's deaths.
Because when people, when they went after Saddam Hussein, and they kind of literally, chased him down like a dog.
Yes, it was.
And I remember a couple of friends of mine who were very on side with us and everything, felt uneasy even about seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still a person. Like, we have a common humanity. And
I would have celebrated Hitler's death pretty well, and Stalin, I have to say. I'm quite happy about it. I didn't mind seeing Mussolini strung up with piano either.
But this stuff has really ramped up on the left. They've always been like that, and you've just given the classic example of Margaret Thatcher, but some of them were a little bit more staid. I mean, I remember Alan Clark, the Tory MP in Diarist, when he died, Tony Benn just gave a beautiful kind of response to his death, and said he was a very kindly man, personally a very kindly man, and very funny and all of those things, and wouldn't say anything negative about him at all. But yes, it's the province of the left. They're the Be Kind Brigade have always been full of hatred.
You can only imagine the scenes many years from now when Trump or Farage shuffle off this mortal coil, what you're going to see.
Exactly. Amy, apparently we are being fleeced right, left and centre. Like we didn't know this.
No, it's not
but on
news.
Things like taxes and haircuts and things. Can you explain what's happening?
Yeah, so this is a report from the BBC of all organisations that have exposed the fact that migrants, illegal immigrants are kind of over millions of pounds are being spent on taxis for them to be taxied to GP appointments. Among other things, I don't know, but there was one example of a taxi ride that cost over £600. I honestly don't know how you spend £600 on a taxi ride. I don't know if this person's going around the whole country. And of migrant hotels, of sites, of taxis kind of pulling up and transporting migrants to places, I don't know where. And this is costing obviously millions of pounds. And I think it's just, I mean, as you said, this isn't a new thing. There's reports of migrants having access to free prescriptions, to dentistry, to kind of eye tests, obviously social housing, and obviously they're being housed in hotels. And I think this recent story of the taxis, I think it's the kind of thing that tips people over the edge, because some of these things, people coming here and accessing the NHS, to me, there's a question as whether they should be able to access the NHS at all because they haven't paid into the system. But I think some people sort of think, well, how can we deny people healthcare? But then when people are getting things that most ordinary people don't get, which would most of it be considered a luxury, a taxi ride somewhere is a luxury, then they think, it feels so, uneven and unfair. And I remember when I was working in healthcare, like when I was working with people who were severely ill and you needed to get them to an appointment, you'd have to go through all sorts of, you'd have to call up the social worker, and just getting, one taxi ride paid for was, loads of paperwork, and you'd have to really push for it. And that's people who are really ill and do really need it. And then when you see how easily, these migrants are getting access to so many things that most ordinary people would think, well, I'm not getting that and I'm paying my taxes. It's the sort of thing that pushes people over the edge. And I think this is this story of migrant freebie. I think it's becoming one of the defining stories the more we hear about it, that is making people switch from maybe Labour to Reform. I think it's that big. And I think it is why they are growing, in terms of the polls. It's because it's so unfair and people are so struggling more and more. In their day-to-day.
This is the crux of the whole issue, isn't it? It defends that most British quality, which is a sense of fair play. We have the expression, it's just not cricket. And when you see your family members and your friends waiting for years on the housing waiting list, and then someone comes on a boat and piggybacks over them, when you have people suffering from cancer, or waiting for scans and so forth. I mean, one of these people that was interviewed by the BBC, she said she came here because she had stage 4 cancer. She couldn't get treatment elsewhere, and she was told she would get treatment over here. But they had an NHS psychiatrist who was livid. She said, I have patients waiting for years to get schizophrenia sessions. £600 was the cost of this taxi ride for a knee checkup. Would have covered entirely what we're talking about in terms of this. And of course, the thing is, this would not be known. We wouldn't be discussing this had the BBC not done an undercover report. With all the attention on the migrant scandals, everything else, why is this still going on after all these years? Why has nobody in government seen this? Why has the civil service not flagged this? And of course, the reason is the civil service are never held accountable. There is never anyone who gets fired. There are no repercussions. So these sorts of things just carry on and on. I think the Home Office, who are the ones who are actually behind these taxi contracts, the people who actually arrange the taxis are the actual the people who own the hotels. So I'm sure there are all sorts of kickbacks going on there as well. I think the Home Office is a fifth column working against the British national interest, and they need to be removed entirely from all aspects of migrants.
Well, I think, the Home Office, within the Home Office, there is an 850 strong Islamic network in the Home Office, isn't it? We know that because we've talked about that on this show before. It feels like the end of days with this stuff, doesn't it? Because we've gone from the tragedy of Pakistani rape gangs and sexual abuse in the streets and women and children not being able to walk the streets to this absurdity. And the absurdity is made all the worse because on the one hand, they'll say, the government says, well, they've got a bus pass with one return journey on it, and that's all they have. As well as the £600 taxi journey as well if they want it, and they're taken everywhere by taxi if they want to have anything medical done. But of course they're going to come here because they know, they're like everybody else. They've got mobile phones, they've got WhatsApp, so they're constantly messaging people at home, and they're saying all of this stuff is here. Why would they not come here? If you've got stage 4 cancer, why would you not come here? It's stop the benefits, take away the impetus, and if that's not there, then they will not come.
Yeah, and alongside that, Starmer's 1 in 1 out scheme has been shown to be a complete failure because already human rights lawyers are intervening and stopping people from being deported. So the idea that is anyway a deterrent, not that it was, has just been shown to be a complete farce. So they're just going to keep coming, aren't they? And it's just.
Can I ask therefore, what do you think in the light of this, what you've just been telling us, light of this BBC report, you say, right? Also the big march, which was Unite the Kingdom, which was essentially also against large-scale immigration, and the protests outside the hotels, and for that matter, the flags going up all over the place. Where are we as a result of all of that? These are uncomfortable questions, aren't they? Where are we actually?
Well, I think the situation is people are becoming more and more polarised and radicalised. And I mean, we have the outcome of the Epping Hotel judgment. I think it's in October, is it? Coming up as to whether it is a hotel and whether it should be able to house migrants or not. But I mean, it will be, even if we do win, it's a small victory because it won't necessarily apply to all migrant hotels. I think it's just going to get worse and worse. And I think it's just now a waiting game of to the next government.
This is the thing, isn't it? It's this whole thing.
And all of it, sorry to interrupt, but all of this goes in Reform's favour because they've never been in government before. People are sick of Labour and Tories. And every time these stories come out, I think there'll be more and more people, regardless of what they look like or whether they're ready or what Nigel Farage says, people will just say, well, to hell with it, just vote for Reform because I don't know what else to do.
I think we're getting to the stage where we're beginning to really understand what a sectarian society looks like. And public life, civil, getting together in public is going to be, at the moment we're seeing that, people like us socialize in one kind of way, people like the other side socialize in another. That's going to absolutely bifurcate. There's going to be a massive gap between the two. So while you were just saying that, I was relating it to the cancellation stuff. So there is going to be a sector is going to grow that is going to serve us, and it will be completely different to the other sector, and never the twain shall meet. We are going to live in a society. I mean, this is a positive. I'm being positive here because the alternative doesn't bear thinking about. But that is, we are going to understand what sectarianism, what a balkanized society really does look like. And of course, it comes with massive violence as well.
In a way, if it's going to happen, you'd prefer it to happen sooner rather than later, sort of get past that phase. And then you say, well, what now?
Thing is, you see, when I say, where are we? I don't want to be pouring cold water on anything. I mean, I went on the march and here we are. We talk about it all the time, all of these problems. It's just what actually can happen. And I think it does come down, isn't it, to being able to vote for something. So people are putting all their hopes and fears on reform, who've actually shown signs, I believe, of slightly slipping lately, haven't they? Polls this week, 2 polls.
Oh, really?
Right down west to.
I thought they were at their strongest ever. The last well, I saw that they're reaching.
I've seen one poll, they're down 1 point,
but they're larger than the Tory and Labour vote combined.
That was, yes. So,
and I'm optimistic because Reform has dragged the policy agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, Reform's lead is so strong that it is making the Labour Party and the Tories say things that you could never have imagined they would say. We've also, of course, had the grassroots rising up with all the Unite the Right, Reunite the Kingdom and Raise the Colours and the protests outside. So I think the agenda has shifted, and I think, yes, we do have these terrible stories of things that are happening because the institutions are still in power. But I think that their days may well be numbered. It's a long process. It's a 25-year process to change the institutions. But I think that disconnect now, the chasm between the people and the people who run the country is so stark and so big. I think change is coming. How long it's going to take. But actually, I'm quite optimistic by sensing the mood in the country.
I've been looking at the political commentary over the last few days, and the Tories and Labour are absolutely nowhere. It's Ed Davey, curiously enough, who's only kind of providing any pushback against reform, and they are saying that, oh, we're back. We are the opposition. They're on 16%. They're up to 16%, which I suppose is good for them. But anybody else who is on 16% would be saying, well, it's over. Let's go and, open up a coffee shop in Barnsley and forget politics. That's how bad it is.
I do think, when you sort of say about people, how, sort of out of touch and with what people feel, that they are. I think people have got to understand that it's not just that they are out of touch when they do all this kind of stuff for migrants. It's actually that it's a deliberate thing, and it is, I would say, malicious. It is not just a misplaced naivety. People still think, you hear it, you see it on Twitter all the time. People are they're so out of touch. Actually, I don't think they are. I think they know exactly what people feel about this. But they don't, not only do they not care, they actually detest us for thinking that.
And I also think sort of the concern about all these human rights laws and the ECHR, I feel like that message is starting to get through to ordinary people. It's very difficult to explain to people why you're against human rights. It's so hard because it sounds so wonderful. And
against puppies.
Yes, exactly. And most people aren't interested in the law or the nitty-gritty of policy. But I do feel like more and more people will say, well, hang on, why? This is so insane. Why are these people being given this and why? And then they sort of look a little bit further, and then they find out about all these laws and how they're drafted. And it almost feels to me like more and more people are saying, well, I have to understand what's going on because it doesn't make sense to me. So they're gaining a kind of an ability to kind of express what's happening and an understanding of it, where we can sort of collectively say, no, these laws are not for us and we need to do something about them because they're destroying our country.
I think
where people can say, stop all this human rights nonsense.
I think the key thing for us is making sure that people understand that they can divorce human rights from ethics, because when we talk about human rights, we're not talking about ethics or a moral stance. We're talking about politics. Human rights, as far as the Labour Party, ECHR, it's all about politics. So that idea of human rights is the biggest misnomer you could possibly have. So it's divorcing that. But just coming back to what you said, you're absolutely right. They loathe us. They detest us. And we saw this on the walk up to Brexit. And the thing is, nothing's changed. It's more deeply entrenched, and they hate us even more. And as I said before, now it's legitimized that some of them think they can kill us.
Do you know, I think one of the most important functions for the New Culture Forum, going forward in the terrible expression, going forward in the immediate future, crucial, and that is to make sure that people wake up. We know there is about 25% who feel like we do and who would turn up on demonstrations, and I'd say around 25%, but there's still a huge number of people who do not quite get it. And I think it's one of our functions, it's one of our tasks, is to make sure they do get it. Actually, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
Right. So, someone who gets us always a lot of views, but actually has nothing really to do with this, is our good friend Prince Harry. Rafe, should Harry come back? Would you welcome him? Because, can I just put it in context, not being too frivolous here, because it's very important. That on the one hand, there's Harry, rumours that he actually wants to be back and everything. And then on the other hand, we have Duchess of York, people talking about the time has come for her to actually finally be just chucked overboard. Big splash.
From the depressing to the ridiculous.
Yes.
So this is all about Prince Harry wanting to essentially have another role in the UK again, of course, because he is adrift in California. He was, Meghan has got everything that she wanted to out of the relationship. She's got her, media career. She's got, she's rubbing shoulders with B-listers. And essentially, Prince Harry only knows how to be a prince, how to be a polo player, and how to be a soldier. And none of those are of any value if you are in California. And so he's essentially got all of his social circle is her social circle. And so he's trying his best to actually do what he does best, and that's basically to carry on his charity work and come back to the UK. The king, of course, being a loving father, is hoping his son will be a prodigal son and keep the door open for him. But, the rest of the royal family seems very clear. How can you trust somebody who has betrayed the family so much? Oprah Winfrey interviews, memoir, books, and everything else that's been done. The hope of a reconciliation with the Prince of the Wales is for the birds. That's not going to happen at all. It just remains to be seen, actually, whether there's any hope of a reconciliation between father and son. There's talk that perhaps the king might go to the Invictus Games in the near future. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think he may have some private meetings between the king and Prince Harry, but any idea that there's going to be any sort of major public reconciliation won't happen. As Her Late Majesty said, you can't be half in and half out of the royal family.
Oh, I see, like the tumbleweed is going, so no one's got any views on this particularly. I have to say, I think I'm quite happy to see the back of him. But there's a far more, I think, important thing at stake. There was a poll recently, which we didn't discuss on here, but it showed that support amongst people for the institution of monarchy was at its lowest since records began. It was at 51%. Now, I wrote this book called Monarchy Matters, which is all about public support as measured over the past 40 years. That is actually true. It's never gone below about 62. And in high days and holidays, it's gone up as far as 85. The institution That is, not just the Queen, the institution. Here we are at 51. That's before you get to younger people, far greater proportion than that. If you do care about this is a great worry, isn't it?
It is, but
is it really, is it really about Harry or about Sarah Ferguson?
As I was going to say, I don't think it's even about the monarchy. I think this country is changing so fast. We are becoming something different. The systems, the traditions that we've always enjoyed, that we've cleaved to forever, are under such a real threat at the moment. I wake up every day, I look at the news and I shudder. I just wonder what the hell's going to happen next. We're living in a country that is in free for all. I think we're in the certainly with the migration, with the absolute kind of real discontent, we're in kind of national emergency territory, really. And I think if you frame it in those terms, then you begin to understand it. I've got no time whatsoever for Harry. I couldn't care less where he is. I couldn't care less whether he's, in the royal family, out of the royal family. I just don't want to know about him at all. And if I feel like that, I think lots of other people are going to feel like that. However, having said that, I'm an absolute committed royalist, monarchist, I should say. I'm just not keen on some of the members of the royal family.
Well, this is not just about the monarchy. So you're going to see lots of polls about traditional British institutions, culture, which are going to show a similar decline for all the reasons that Philip very eloquently said. But the crux of it is mass immigration and the indoctrination of our youth. That is a huge sway. Remember, 17 or 18% of this country are foreign born. Right, that's a huge number of people. Combine that with people who are British born but still identify more with Islam or whatever else, and we know the support for the monarchy is lowest amongst black people and amongst Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. Then you've got the youth. For the first time in history, more British youth want a republic than want a monarchy. Now, we've never seen that before. So if you factor in ethnic minorities, mass immigration, and the youth, that's what's tipping the polls. And if you actually just look at traditional British people, support for the monarchy remains very high, but we've never seen before. These challenges have never existed in the past.
I have to say, though, when I look at it, I couldn't be more of a committed monarchist, but you do have to question yourself. You sort of think, well, wait a minute, we have a monarch who appears to be lining up with the other side, and has done some very kind of gauche gestures, I would say. And we also have a Prince and Princess of Wales. I go into eulogies about him, so please don't worry, about my feeling about that. Other than the fact that they are meant to be public figures, and they seem quite happy to not do very much and live a private life and still be paid. Does that not bother you?
No, it bothers me. I was thinking about, I wonder how much that 51% is due to the shift from the Queen to King Charles. But there was also a shift around that time in terms of the Queen was alive during COVID, and to me that's kind of the time where everything went downhill in terms of we had the Boris wave and everything. So there has been a shift around the same time as it going from Queen Elizabeth to King Charles. And I think because we are facing so many kind of threats to our freedom and kind of the existential crisis of mass immigration, to me it's a time where you really feel, right, our politicians are absolutely, treacherous. They've completely let us down. Right, we need a monarchy. Are they going to step in and do something? And since the Queen passed, it's felt like we've had a monarchy that's the complete opposite of what we would need. That they're not only stepping in, as you say, they're almost supporting what's happening to us. And then you sort of start to think, well, what are they there for then? I mean, even people on the right are sort of saying, they're letting us down because why are they not speaking to these issues, or why are they kind of seemingly, doing things that promote Islam or just taking a back seat? It'd be difficult to know how the Queen would have managed this, but I think it feels that at the time when we need them most, as you say, they're not there.
Yeah, it feels that their function should be to connect past, present and future. They should be at the centre of all of that kind of thing. And I think with the passing of the Queen, I think that connection to the past it seems to have gone. Now, that's a bizarre thing to say, bearing in mind how old is Charles? 70? Well,
Six, I think, this year.
76. Okay, so he should have that connection to the past. But because of all the things he's interested in, his Greene agenda, his fascination with Islam, all of those things, you just don't see him in the same way. And I struggle to see him as a positive for Britain, if I'm being honest.
Actually, when you were talking about who these people are that would lessen it to 51% support, I would also say that there are people who are their natural supporters who feel very, very aggrieved. Yeah. So that when he did comment in his Christmas message to the King about the riots, Southport riots or disturbances, they were in a very much look at how people came together in the face of this awful thing. Well, wait a minute. A lot of those people who were writing would actually have come out for you, and, they would come out for you and support you, but they no longer do. Actually, one thing I think is very interesting about this, the media and people still call him King Charles.
They don't call him the king.
They don't call him the king.
Yeah.
Well, they also say Charles.
Yeah.
I never heard anyone say Elizabeth. And now you'll hear Charles and Camilla all the time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, on that note, we're actually going to carry on and talk about anxiety. Are you a worry guts? We all are. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing these jobs. But in the meantime, do become a member, and then you can see the whole thing. Do join us in after the break.
Don't worry, I'll be there.
And thank you very, very much indeed, Amy, and thank you very much, Rafe. See you next week. Bye-bye. Our mission at the New Culture Forum is and always has been to defend and celebrate Britain's history, culture, and its people, and indeed Western civilization, at a time when both are under sustained attack. We have grown from small beginnings to become the country's most influential right-leaning cultural think tank. Our content is watched and read by some of Britain's most influential political figures. But now, we need your help. If you believe in what we do, then please do become a member. For as little as £4 a month, you can make a vital contribution to what we do. As a member of the NCF family, you will help ensure that we can continue to produce quality content online, such as our 3 weekly programs, Whittle, which is our flagship interview show, Newspeak, our panel discussion show, and Deprogrammed, which is targeted at Britain's youth. As you probably know, in addition, we produce important documentaries, such as our critically acclaimed 6-part series, The West, a stunning celebration of the history and genius of Western civilization. And our ongoing documentary series, Heresies, with hard-hitting episodes tackling subjects such as immigration, gender ideology, and BBC bias. But the New Culture Forum is much more than a YouTube channel. We don't just complain about Britain as it is, we provide real solutions and clear policies on how we can push back against the madness and restore sanity to this nation. Our presenters are now highly sought after and have become familiar faces across the media. Our prestigious annual Smith Lecture and our regional and indeed national conferences have attracted world-class speakers. Perhaps most importantly, we are the only organisation on the right of politics that has launched a national movement without actually being a political party. And uniquely, through our NCF Locals programme, we've established some 30 active branches in towns and cities right across the nation, from Edinburgh to Exeter, and with many more on the way. We're very proud of what we've achieved, and our members have made it possible. In return, our members receive access to exclusive content, invitations to private events, free or discounted tickets to our conferences and lectures, free copies of our books, and much more. I very much hope that you'll join us too by clicking the link in the description or going to our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Now is the time that we need your help. Thank you.